Hey, y'all. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Unfeigned the Podcast. I'm Jay. I'll be your host. But before we dive into this episode, I want to just mention a few things before we get started. So first, I want to say thank you. Thank you for being a listener for this on this podcast. If this is your first time, welcome. I appreciate that you're here. I hope that you'll continue on this journey. Hope that you'll listen to all the episodes we put out. If you've been listening and following along, I'm so grateful. So grateful for all of you. I also wanted to just remind y'all of a few things. Go to the website, unfeigned.org. That's UNFEIGNED.org, unfeigned.org. You can get all the information from that website that I'm about to talk about, but I would love for you just to check it out. I'm always open to feedback, so, that's cool, whatever kind of feedback you want to give, but definitely check it out and explore the website, click on the links, check out what I got up there. And I'm having fun with it. So I'm constantly checking it out and updating it and adding things. And I want it to be a resource, a tool for all of y'all, right? Anybody that listens to this podcast or anybody that just wants to talk about things or whatever. I want it to be a resource for everybody. And so I'm trying to keep that updated in that way. So definitely check out the website. While you're there, I want to bring your attention to something. There will be a link that is, it says support the podcast. If you click on that, that will give you information about what I'm hoping to accomplish. And that is to create this movement of healing, to create this community around this movement of healing. And I would be so honored. I'd be so grateful. I would love it. It would be so awesome if you would become a supporter of the podcast. And you can do that by making a one-time donation, and that's any amount. It like whatever amount you're able to do, I'm so grateful for. And all of it will go towards me using this podcast to reach more people. All of it will go towards the resources of this podcast so that I can help as many people as possible and we can continue this movement of healing. And so if it's a one-time donation, awesome. You can also become a monthly supporter. And that obviously will have the longest reach, the largest reach, because it'll last. It'll be a lasting reach. And I would love for you to become a monthly supporter. And if you go to the website, unfeigned.org, click on the support the podcast link at the top or button at the top, you'll be able to check it all out, get all the information as far as the different, we have three like tiers, I guess you can call them, of becoming a monthly supporter. And I had some fun with it, but tried to keep it, kind of simple. And so it's bronze, silver, and gold. And there's different levels. You can see what you can get at all those levels. And trying to really create this sense of community around this movement of healing. And I would love for you to consider it, especially if this podcast has touched you in any way, if it's encouraged you in any way, if it's helped you in any way, and you believe in the mission of this podcast to help people go from brokenness to healing in their personal lives and in their relationships, then please consider supporting the podcast. Again, either by a one-time donation or by becoming a monthly supporter. Now, I do want to say this. I have those three tiers up there, but you can give any amount. If you became a monthly, obviously as a one-time donation, but if you became a monthly supporter, you can do that at any amount. So it doesn't necessarily have to be at the three tiers of those amounts, although you could, but any amount that you want to become a monthly supporter at is awesome. And I would love that. And when you click on any one of those, when you click on support the podcast, there's a little button with a coffee. I use Buy Me a Coffee to manage all that. And so when you click on that button, there is a section where you can just become a monthly supporter at those levels, or you can enter in your own amount and choose for it to be a monthly donation. So any amount of money that you want to donate is awesome, right? And if it's at a monthly supporter level, whatever amount that you donate, if it's above whatever the tier is, you would get that tier, even if it's a little bit more than what that tier indicates. So definitely check out the website, check out all the information. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, whatever it is, let me know. Also, just want a few quick announcements. Remember, the last Friday every month, we do our Healing Out Loud series. We're calling it Healing Out Loud because it's a way for you to express your questions, ask for advice, want some feedback on some things. And what you would do is you would go to the website, unfeigned.org, and you would click the live Q&A button or link at the top. And when you do that, there's a form and you would submit whatever questions you want. The cool thing about it is you don't have to put in your name. You can remain anonymous. I'll never know who it comes from unless you choose to put your name in, and that's up to you. Totally fine. But that information will never go out anywhere. So you'll be anonymous. If you choose to use your name, I might just reach out to you about it. But if you don't, you can remain completely anonymous. And what happens is when you submit a question or ask for advice, I use my story, my experiences, my opinions, and I try to unpack what it is you've submitted the best I can. And again, I'm nothing special. I think God has given me a story, and I feel like He's opened doors for me to use that story to help other people. But I'm nothing special. But I have learned some things over my experiences. And so I try to unpack what you've submitted. And while you're getting your questions answered, there's somebody listening who, for whatever reason, chose not to submit something, and that's fine, but they may have the same questions or wondering about the same things. And while I'm unpacking your question and answering your question, theirs may also be getting answered. So it's all about this movement of healing, creating this sense of community. So the last Friday of every month, we do Healing Out Loud, where I dive into questions that you all have submitted. So thank you so much again for being a listener. I want to dive into this episode before it gets too much longer, but those are important things. So consider all of that stuff and let's dive in. So this is the 4th episode in this series that we've started called Emotionally Whole. And I've been so, what's the word I'm looking for? Excited about doing these series. You know, when I started this podcast, there's a very clear purpose of this podcast, and I have not gotten away from that purpose, and I won't get away from it. And I started by telling my story, and it was sharing my heart, more storytelling, and just showing you my heart. And then we dove into a series, right? I tried a series, and when I started this podcast originally, you know, it's very raw, it's unedited, it's real, it's transparent, it's vulnerable. And when I embarked on this journey of doing a series or doing, you know, a couple different series, I thought, well, let me make an attempt at making it more structured, right? Still unedited, still raw, still vulnerable and transparent and real, but it has the sense of a format, of a structure, of a teaching kind of vibe to it. And I've been really excited about it because it's given me opportunities to provide really practical tools, really practical ways that y'all can go from brokenness to healing. And it's about how I did it. And it's about things that in my experience, in my journey, in my life that I've used to go from brokenness to healing. And so it's been really exciting. So this series that we've been on is called Emotionally Whole, and it's all about emotional regulation. How do we regulate our emotions, right? And so this is the 4th episode, and I'm calling this one Learning to Pause Before You Explode or Disappear. And the whole theme of this episode is about mastering that moment, right? That moment between what triggers us, like the stimulus, and our response. So it's that moment between what happens and how we respond, right? So we're going to dive in here. So thank you again so much. If you've been following along, I love it. If this is your first time, welcome. I think it's so awesome that you're here. And I love that y'all are here for episode 4 of our Emotionally Whole series. So if you've been following along, you know that we've been talking about feelings and triggers and how to honor what's going on inside of us without letting it run our lives, right? And so today we're going to get even more practical. And this episode is about that split-second moment. We've all been there. We all know what I'm referring to. That split-second moment when you feel the surge of anger, the flood of tears, the urge to run, or the impulse to shut down. That moment when you're about to explode or disappear. And we've been there, we've experienced it, we know someone who has. And so you know what I'm talking about when it feels like something in you takes over before you can even think. So we're going to learn how to pause in that moment, to hold the tension so that you can respond in truth instead of reacting in fear. So the first thing I want to dive into or tackle is, why do we react instead of respond? Why is it that we react instead of respond? So we're going to get really honest here. Okay, most of us are not taught to pause. Most of us are not taught to wait and think before we speak. Most of us, well, we were taught to react, to fix, to defend, to attack, to protect, and then to shrink and vanish as well. And so it's human nature, really. When something feels dangerous, we go into survival mode, right? We've heard it a lot, right? We've all heard the fight, flight, or freeze, right? That happens to us, right? And so when something feels dangerous, we go into survival mode. And usually it's with one of those three things, but what used to protect us can become what destroys us. Let me say that again. What used to protect us can become what destroys us. And that's if we never learn to pause. So think about it. That fight that you had with a loved one that spiraled because you said things you didn't mean, right? The moment you ghosted a friend because you felt overwhelmed. The conversation where you shut down instead of speaking your truth. All of those moments had something in common. You reacted instead of responded. And that's not because you're a bad person or anything like that. It's because your nervous system hijacked you. Right? And the Bible speaks to this. And in James 1, verses 19 to 20, it says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Let's just take that first part before the comma, right? Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. I think that's a very important order. I think that's a crucial order in how to have conversations, how to deal with conflict, how to be in a relationship, how to grow as a person. So God is literally telling us, slow down, hold up, right? So we're gonna dive into, since I mentioned it, we're gonna dive into the fight, flight, or freeze. But there's another F word in this that I want to introduce. So we're gonna get into understanding our fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Okay, and what that means. So I want you to hear me. You cannot regulate what you will not recognize. I have spoken on this a lot. And if you've been following along, you have heard me say, or you've heard me talk about naming the issue and identifying the issue, but the power in naming something. And this is exactly what I mean when I say that we cannot regulate what we won't recognize. A big part of emotional wholeness is learning to name how your body reacts to a threat, right? So here's the 4 F words that I just mentioned, right? So fight, you feel threatened, so you attack, you argue, you get loud, right? Flight, you run away physically or emotionally, and you just cut off the connection. Freeze is you go numb, you shut down, you disassociate, right? Fawn is you people please to keep the peace, but you ignore your own needs. And we all have patterns. All of us have patterns. And none of these responses make us a bad person. None of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, none of that makes you a bad person. They make you a human who learned to survive, right? But you can learn to pause. You can learn this new method, this new process, so that you can choose a new pattern. So we're going to go through this pause method, right? And how it looks and how it plays out in the heat of the moment. All right, so we're gonna bring this pause framework into this. And if we remember, just let me remind y'all that pause, we're using that as an acronym. And pause, the acronym stands for pause, assess, uncover, shift, engage. All right, so we're going to break it down a little bit regarding the moments when you're about to explode or disappear. So first letter, P for pause. Literally stop. Don't say the thing. Don't slam the door. Don't run out of the room. Pause. Take a few slow breaths. Step outside for a moment if you can, but then come back. And you can even say this to yourself: God, help me pause long enough to hear you. This is the crucial moment. This is the in-between. This is that moment between what happened and how we respond. And this will set the tone for the rest of how that situation will go. The second letter, A, stands for assess. And so when you pause and you're going through this, you want to start to ask yourself some questions. And obviously, this happens all simultaneously, all at once. But, and I mean, technically, you're pausing and then you go to the next step but it happens all pretty quickly, because then you want to think, what's happening inside of you? Where's the tension? What is the emotion? Ask yourself, what am I feeling? Is this about this moment, or is this about something older? And then you move on to uncover. So you've paused, you've asked yourself these questions, and now you're saying, what does this moment remind you of? Is there a deeper fear driving this? Maybe you're scared they'll leave. Maybe you feel worthless or powerless. So then you move on to the S for shift. So you now have to go from where you were just at, and you have to shift this mindset and you say, okay, what is true in this moment? That's important. What is true in this moment? And then speak it out loud if you can. I know that won't always apply, but truths are, I am safe. I have a voice. God is with me. And this is how you shift from panic to peace. And then you move on to E for engage. And this is where you re-enter the conversation or the situation. You re-enter this situation with a grounded, regulated heart. Remember, this is about emotional regulation. If you need to set a boundary, do it. If you need to ask for a break, do it. But do it with clarity and not chaos. So I've given you a bunch of information, but practically, what is this? How do we do this, right? So how do I, Jay, how do I do this realistically? So here's some practical tools for slowing down, okay? I love to give practical tools because it's one thing to say, this is what it is, and to tell you, hey, do this, do this, do this, do this. So let me put it this way. There's one thing to tell you the what, but then there's another thing to tell you the how. And if I just told you the what is what I just did, all this stuff I just talked about, that's all the what, right? Like, here's something you do. This is this, this is this, this is this. But I never help you with the how. Then we're just stuck. We're stuck knowing things, but not knowing how to do them. Okay, so I love giving practical tools because you can literally put these into practice right away, immediately. Okay, so, and I have said this so much, but I think I'm starting to contradict myself because I do it all the time now. I say I don't like cliches, right? And I do have to reiterate, I just don't like I just don't like the dumb ones. I like ones that are meaningful and you actually are using it appropriately, not just saying it because it sounds trendy or cool. But I have found that I use so many, like, I don't know, corny names or titles or catchy reminder phrases or whatever. But anyway, so couple practical tools, and I have 3-ish of them that I want to give to you. The first one is called 3-2-1 grounding. Okay, 3-2-1 grounding. So when you feel overwhelmed, right, I want you to name 3 things you see. Name 2 things you hear. Name 1 thing you can touch. Let me say that again. When you start to feel overwhelmed and you feel panic or you feel this kind of toxic response or whatever about to happen, name 3 things you can see. It could be anything. Any 3 things you see. There's a tree, there's a car, there's a house, whatever. Name 3 things you can see. Your refrigerator, wherever you're standing. Then you name 2 things you can hear. So for me, it's my air conditioner. And then I hear birds outside, right? And then name 1 thing you can touch. My desk. Okay. What this does is this grounds you back in the present. So what happens when when we start to feel overwhelmed, we get carried off into this space where it's not really in the present because now we're in our panic. And doing this 3-2-1 grounding tool, it grounds you back in the present. Okay. All right. The second practical tool is having an exit strategy. Before I get into this, I want to, this is just a sidebar because I'm thinking about it, just popped in my head. So I'm very, what's the word? Interested, maybe. I don't know. I consider this a lot, right? And it is like self-defense. It's knowing how to escape something. It's very tactical, these kinds of things. And I consider that stuff so much. I love that so much, and I'm very into it. And so when we go to a restaurant, when I go to a restaurant, I mean, this is a given, but I can't sit with my back to the door. I have to see the main entry and exit location. So, and it's become normal now, but I know sometimes, I'll go with my kids or whatever, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I know, Dad, you have to see the door." And so we switch sometimes or whatever. But it's not just because I'm like anal about it, but for me, it's my exit strategy. So when I get into a restaurant or any location, I'm scoping it out. And so I'm counting the people, I'm looking for things that are normal and abnormal, things that are supposed to and things that may be out of place. I'm locating the exits, the entrances, any ways to escape. If something goes down, I'm playing through scenarios. And I know you might be like, that's a little crazy or weird or whatever, but it's me and that's what I do. But I have an exit strategy. If this happens, this is what I'm going to do to keep my children safe, right? So I have this exit strategy. And so this second practical tool is an exit strategy, right? So before the conflict happens, before whatever the situation is, right? Before the circumstance, the conflictual circumstance, before this conflict happens, agree with your loved ones that if one of you gets too triggered, you can call a pause. And you can step away without it meaning rejection. So obviously this would apply in certain situations, right? Generally in a relationship type situation, okay? Obviously not if you're by yourself, but there is a version of this that would happen just between you and you, okay? But let's for a second imagine this is between a husband and wife, or a partner relationship, a dating relationship, right? So agree with each other that if one of you starts to feel overwhelmed, starts to feel too triggered, right? That y'all can call a pause, quote unquote, and step away for a second, for a moment, without the other one feeling rejected. It doesn't mean rejection. It's just a pause because you're starting to feel some kind of way and you want to be grounded. You want to come back with clarity and not chaos. That pause, that little moment, that agreement can save relationships. So the next practical tool, the third practical tool, is a movement release. Okay, sometimes you need to move your body to reset your nervous system, right? We've all done it, told somebody to do it, know somebody who does it, or have seen somebody do it, but you get up and move. Sometimes if you're at work too long, you need to get up and move, and because you're starting to feel tired or sluggish or you're getting in this rut and you need to get up and move, right? And you get we used to say, get the juices flowing, right? And so you got to get your blood flowing, you got to get your muscles moving, and you reset your nervous system just by getting up and moving. So movement is important. So when you start to feel this overwhelming sense of panic, or you're starting to feel triggered or whatever, go for a walk. Go for a walk, get your body moving, right? Just stand up and shake it out. Shake out your body, right? Splash cold water on your face. We've seen that, right? In movies, right? And stuff. The movement helps your brain reset. And it's such a good thing to do to bring you back. Okay. Another sort of practical thing you can always do, and I love this, and this goes back to my mantra of be curious, not judgmental. I'm always asking questions. I always want to dive in. I always want to investigate. And I think we should do this with ourselves as well. So ask yourself, what is my default reaction when I feel overwhelmed? What's my go-to, right? What's my default reaction when I feel overwhelmed? Do I explode? Do I disappear? Do I shut down? Whatever it is. And then how can I practice pausing instead? Like the acronym pausing. All right, so ask yourself that. Also, check this scripture out. James 1:19 through 20. We read it already. It was the one that said, be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Check that out. Meditate on that. Let that live in your bones this week. Let it penetrate you this week. Okay? And then something that's really helpful, whether you have faith or not, we all want hope. And hope is in prayer, right? So just reach out to God. Say, God, teach me to pause. Give me the courage to not run, not attack, not numb out, right? Help me feel what I feel, but respond in your truth, not my fear. Let my words and my silence be led by your wisdom. In Jesus' name, amen. It's a short little prayer that can really provide you some hope and encouragement. And so in closing in this episode, I want you all to know, I know pausing is hard. I couldn't do it back then. I was broken. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have anybody helping me figure out how to do it. And so I learned the hard way, and I eventually discovered how to do it. And so I get it. I know it's hard. But it's holy work. It's redemptive work. It's such a sacred practice, and it changes relationships, changes families, changes your legacy, changes you. Y'all, next episode, we're going to dig into something. We're going to get into something that is probably one of my favorite things to talk about, and that's our inner critic. You know, that voice inside you that tries to shame you into silence, tries to lie to you, tries to convince you of things that aren't true. We're going to heal it. We're going to confront it. We're going to rewire it with truth. Y'all, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate y'all so much. I can't even tell you how grateful I am for you. I'm going to try, though. I am so grateful. I'm beyond grateful that y'all listen, that you're on this journey with me, and I pray that you would continue with me. I pray that you would share this podcast with everybody that you know, and let's continue to build this community, this movement of healing. Y'all, thanks again. Until next time, we'll see you then.